the Web3 indexing and querying protocol for blockchain data. As you know that all the blockchain data is scattered all over the web and it is not in organized way. So that's why we need the protocol that can give you the data that you want and index it very well. So yeah, so basically this is a GIF of how indexing works. As you can see, the balls is basically all the transactions that are done unanimously, and it contains like all different types of transactions that interact with all the different protocols or decentralized applications. And what Graph does is it like curates this data for us in a one-stop place, and that we can query it using the same using the GraphQL APIs. Yeah, so basically, Graph is like the Google of the blockchains, as Google is also a protocol that indexes all the general data that currently we are using. So like whatever you put into Google, it gives you the exact, maybe if you just put in Hack4Bengal or Sister Nivedita University, it is all of this data is indexed already. That's why we see all those results, right? So similarly, in the Web3 world, we have the graph that does this for us. Yeah, so basically this is what a block maybe can be seen as an overview. So we can see that general Ethereum block may contain different types of transactions. Like there's a green, blue, red. So these are all different types of transactions interacting with all of these different protocols. So yeah, so basically this is the same transactions. Yeah, and then with the use of graph, we can just do all of this in one stop and bring all of this data together for a single protocol, and we can query it and display it to our front end. Yeah, so what basically graph does, it uses something known as subgraph, which is an open-end API that you use to query the blockchain data. So yeah, so what the current architecture consists of, you write some smart contracts, and you have the UI. So basically subgraph is basically the middleware where you query the data from the contract that you have, and then you display it on the front end. Yeah. So this is the current architecture problem, as I mentioned, that we directly interact, the user interface directly interacts with the blockchain. So like whatever we we get very generalized data when we query it directly to the smart contract. Yeah, and if you want to, this is an example of a simple query to get the token IDs owned by a single owner. So you have to write this much of code just to get the token IDs that are owned by a specific owner, right? So, but let's see how Graph does this, and yeah. So as I told you that Graph protocol comes in as the middle for all of this, and it basically takes the data from the blockchain and gives it to a front end in the way that we want to display it. Yeah, so the sample that we saw, example query that we saw earlier, this is the same with the GraphQL, that we just get this query, that NFTs of owner, then the string type, and what type of data that we want. So this is much easier task what we saw over here, that it reduced all of this code just to these simple GraphQL APIs schema. Yeah, so I'll just show you an example of .com. Yeah, I think there's internet issue. No worries. Yeah, so if you want, you can just go to this website, info.uniswap.com, and you can see the all types of different blockchain data, and this uses under the hood the graph protocol to index all of this data and display it. So these are basically the top dApps and that are powered by the graph network. So basically it is everywhere, like uses the graph protocol to index all of their data. So it may be the protocols, websites, NFTs, DAO, DeFi, music and gaming as well. Yeah, these are some of the more examples that are that uses the graph network to index and query the blockchain data. Yes, so these are some of the statistics of the graph network or the graph protocol. So there are the graph protocol is governed by the indexer, delegators, and curators. I won't go into too deep into this. This is the underlying architecture of graph, and it like indexes all of this data in a decentralized way with the help of these delegators and curators. So as you can see, we have like 400 plus indexers, 11,000. Basically, indexers are the nodes that serves your queries to the front end. Delegators are the one that generate the quality of stake there to secure the network. And curators are basically people or nodes that give us quality subgraphs that we can query from. And so far, recently, the Graph Protocol crossed a milestone of 1 trillion queries from its incubation. Yeah, so I'll just show you a very quick demo of how you can get the data from the smart contract to the front end, and we'll make use of the Uniswap subgraph. And at the end, I'll talk about the that we have for our initiative. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so first of all, I'll just I'll deploy a quick front-end app, a React app. So I've just created this basic sample demo for the sake of this purpose. Yeah. So we'll be creating a white app that basically gives us the boilerplate code for the React app or whatever front-end app you want to mention. We'll just, yeah, so project name, let's give it H4B demo. Yeah, and the project that framework we are going to select is basically that one. Then JavaScript for the sake of this. Yeah, cool. So I'll just run these commands that you can see on the terminal. npm install will basically install all the dependencies that we have. And just a second. Right, a second. So sorry guys, I think it's just a second guys, I'm just shifting to a better internet connection. Yeah, so basically this is the boilerplate code that we created using White. After that, we are just going to install the GraphQL and URQL, basically that are the things that require to write the queries and the schemas. So let me just go real quick and yeah, so now we are installing the GraphQL. Basically, GraphQL is a language or a query language that you use to like write what type of data you want it from the blockchain. And URQL is basically the client that uses GraphQL, React client for GraphQL. So we are using the specific version right now. Let's just wait for 30 seconds or so to install this. Sure. Yeah, it's installing. Yeah, so basically we have now installed the GraphQL. Now, let me just open it in the VS Code. Yeah, so basically, let us go in the apps source section. And the app.js, I'll replace the boilerplate with this one. I'll explain you guys code real quick. So basically, we are using the use effect and use state, which are the hooks for React that takes place. Use effect is basically used to render the view after certain parameter changes, and use state is used to track the state. Then we are using the create client from the URQL that we installed to query the client. Then we are setting the state here through the tokens and set tokens. And this is the query URL of the Uniswap subgraph. I'll just show you real quick. Just a second. So this is the official website of the graph, and in the product section, you can use the Explorer to see the existing subgraphs of the all the protocols. So let's search Uniswap here. Yeah. Yeah. So as you can see, this is the Uniswap subgraph, and this is the query URL. And we have playgrounds and the deployment. All the details, all of this is like open source, and you can see everything. So we have just copied this query URL. This is the endpoint for the Uniswap subgraph. So if you want any type of data from the Uniswap transactions or the chain, then you can use this API endpoint. And yeah, so this is what I have written in the code here. This is the same URL. And for the API key, as you can see, there's a placeholder for API key. Here you have to just replace the API key with the, just a second, yeah. Just under the, as you can, where you see the Uniswap subgraph, there's a button for query. Just click on that, and you can find the URL for this over here. And you can, for the API key, just below that, you can see the manage API keys. You just have to connect your wallet. Yes, and click on create new API key. I'll just create one quickly. Yeah, and you have to like give your email just to get the 1,000 queries for free. This is the like the cheapest way to query the data that we want. The rest of the services that are centralized that charge a hell lot of more, and as it is centralized, there are chances of like failure or all those kinds of things that centralized things does. So I'll just click on claim queries. Awesome. So as you can see, I have this API key. I'll just copy this and paste it in my here. Yeah, so after that, for the client, this is basically we have initialized the client using the create client from the URQL. And this is the example query that I have written, the type of data that I want. So this is the tokens. As I said that we have wrote the Uniswap endpoint. So we are querying the data of tokens, the first 5 tokens of the Uniswap subgraph. And I want the ID, name, symbol, and decimal of this particular chain or data. Then basically this use effect is just to like get the tokens information that we want. And in the return section, we are basically returning the token ID and the name. Let us just go here and refresh this. Yeah, so when I refresh, as you can see, we can see the address for the tokens and the token name from here. We have given the ID and the name. We have wanting to return that data. So this is the data that we have received. And all of this is done through the Uniswap subgraph. We have queried it through the Uniswap subgraph using that endpoint. So also you can, this is the use of existing subgraph. You can also create your own subgraph and you'll also get a endpoint for that as well. And you can query that through the, you'll also get the URL and you can query that using the same format I just mentioned. For reference, you can always go to the Notion page. Just let me, for Hack of Bengal, a previous workshop happened online on YouTube. You can refer that for the deploying a subgraph for your particular smart contract that is from scratch. So do refer that. And apart from that, we are providing a cheat sheet at the booth that is going to consist of all of the like hacker, basically it's a hacker sheet that is going to provide a list of all commands and details that you need for deploying a subgraph and to query with it. Yeah, also just let me go real quick. If anyone wants to connect or have any doubts regarding graph querying protocol, you can just connect with me here. You can just scan it. And so this is basically the Graph India community that we have, like of the advocates that are currently running in India and taking different events under their hand, like working with the graph. So I'll just quickly show you the Notion link. So this is the homepage of the Graph India community. You can find everything over here from the learning resources. And here we have like linked the Hack4Bengal link that I mentioned right now. And we are also running a graphathon. You can see here, I think the link is not, okay, no worries. And the cheat sheet that I mentioned, just let me show you real quick. I'll guide, yeah. So basically this is the cheat sheet that we have. And here you can see all of this, like right from installing the graph CLI, initializing subgraph, configuring, and all of this is provided at a one place. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that is it. Do participate in the graphathon. This is basically a set of challenges where you can deploy a subgraph and then create queries. And at the end, you will be rewarded with the GRT tokens for every successful submission and participation and some cool NFTs for that. So do participate. We'll be announcing this soon with all of the challenges listed very neatly. And yeah, for the bounties, we have like 2 prizes for now. One is the 13,000 for the first place. Where you can make use of the existing subgraph, or you can create your own subgraph. And the second prize is 12,000. So and for the same reasons, for like querying the subgraph, or you use the existing subgraph. And for the best use case, we'll give out all these 2 prizes. Yeah, so that's all from my end. I'll be at the booth or I'll be chatting with the hackers. So if anyone wants to connect, do visit the graph booth and our team will be there and we'll guide you through everything. Yes, thank you so much.
Can we have a huge round of applause, please? Thank you so much for waiting. So I would like to call on stage Mr. Yash Jagda from the Graph Protocol and Dr. Sharup Kumar Ghosh, who is the lead advisor of Hack4Bengal. Please put a huge round of applause for them. We would like to begin with the felicitation program. Please put a huge round of applause for them. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Churchit from the Graph India, and I would like to call upon another person, the lead organizer of Hack4Bengal, Manish Kumar Verwal, for the felicitation program. Can we have a huge round of applause for them? Can we have a huge round of applause for them, please? Thank you so much, the Graph India, the Graph Protocol, for supporting us as our sponsors. It is my great pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, who is none other than everybody's favorite Anubhav Singh, a remarkable individual, a co-founder of Dynopy and a recognized authority in cloud computing and serverless architecture. Anubhav Singh is a dynamic entrepreneur and a Google developer expert in Google Cloud Platform GCP. As a co-founder of Dynopy, Anubhav has hands-on experience in building successful serverless applications and transforming the way software is developed and deployed. Throughout the session, Anubhav will guide us through the intricacies of building serverless applications, emphasizing the benefits of this modern approach to software development. He will share insights on leveraging cloud platforms, implementing serverless functions, and orchestrating workflows to streamline the delivery process. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Anubhav Singh. His expertise, entrepreneurial spirit, and commitment to innovation are sure to make this session an invaluable experience. Prepare to be inspired, educated, and equipped with the knowledge you need to build serverless and ship faster. Please put a huge round of applause for him.
Hi, good afternoon. For the 40 people who are here. No, 40 से ज़्यादा है. Maybe not. Anyway, hi, we are going to talk about build serverless ship faster. And the first thing I want you to do is take out your phone and scan this QR. Done? खुल गया? Is it opening? It has opened. See, there's a very simple application which you might be seeing right now. What does it say? How can I help you today? So now this is a very small bot which I created while I was sitting there since I came. And yes. So when I say I want you to ship faster, that is what I mean. Okay, so what you do, you can give it any topic, you can give it any list of words and see the output that it generates. Feel free to use, use any kind of words. You can probably put Hack4Bengal and stuff like that, right? So if you're building serverless, that is the kind of speed which you can have in deploying your applications to global scale, right? And that is what I'm going to talk about today. Let's begin. Hi, I'm Anubhav Singh, co-founder, DynoPy, and Google developer expert for Google Cloud. Bunch of other things. If you're interested in any of those, or if you're interested in travel planning, let me know. I can help you build itineraries. And this is what we'll do today. I'll ask things, you will have to raise your hand, and we'll take some answers, right? Now, why the topic? Why am I going to talk about build serverless ship faster? Because first of all, you're in a hackathon with limited time, right? If you're not shipping faster, then you are probably going to just sit in the back while other people who have deployed their applications are probably going to win. Anyway, there's also this quote, move fast and break things. Unless you are breaking stuff, you are not moving fast enough. And it has said by a person who recently became very, very popular for doing what he said. And yeah, if you know this meme, well and good. If not, I suggest you to go around and research. This is probably the most popular meme on the internet since the last 2-3 days. Uh, and it has something to do with build fast, right? And even if it's very crappy, build and deploy and let people figure out. There's something called a feedback loop which you don't need to care about. It's probably something which was made in a hackathon. I cannot say for sure, but there are pictures on the internet showing him with a headphone and coding. Yeah. Anyway, so the agenda is very short today. I have a very limited amount of time. And how many of you here are expecting that I'll give out GCP credits? Raise your hand high. Nothing to be ashamed about. Perfect. Yeah, he has 2 hands raised? No. Oh, that's the person on side of you. Okay. Yeah. So this was actually the plan. The plan was I will come in, I'll give you credits, and then I'll go away. And then there will be another speaker who will be speaking with me, who will then take you through a workshop, right? Now, due to shifting, I will be doing the session now. I will not be giving you GCP credits. The other person who will be doing a workshop in the evening, Abhirami, she will be the one who will be giving you credits and helping you set up your Google Cloud accounts. And you will not need a credit card, you will not need anything. This is instrument credit. And once you have it, you will be able to deploy your applications. How you will deploy your applications is what I'm going to show you now. This was supposed to happen after the session. This is happening before, right? Just the sequence has changed. So in case you want to utilize those credits, you might still want to listen to what I have to say. So hello serverless, right? How many of you have worked with serverless or know what serverless applications are? One person there, one person in the back. Do we have an extra mic? Can we do that? He's probably reducing my volume. Yeah. No one else? Just 2 people in the hall, serverless? Yeah, they're in the back. It's okay, shout. What is serverless?
Points and the functions. Yeah, there is a server existing. However, we really don't have to care about it. We really need to care more about the API endpoints and what functions those API endpoints do. More importantly, we really don't need to write the code for the server ourselves. The code is already existing, and it's running somewhere. But we really don't need to care about it.
Okay, so to summarize it for everyone else, he said that in server, like when you have a server, right, you need to take care of the server, and when you do serverless, you do not need to take care of the server, which is similar to if this was a server, this is server-based programming, and there is serverless. Okay, you don't need to take care of that. Anyway, you still need the server scripts, right? You need to figure out how to build a runtime. Anyone else want to try that? Why? What is serverless, and what is different from the server-based runtimes, deployments? Anyone else want to take that? Yes?
So yeah, in serverless, the infrastructure is abstracted for the programmer. So it's there, but we don't need to reason about and think about that. Serverless is not just for computing. So we also have serverless databases. So we don't need to manage the database backups and everything. It's taken care by the platform provider. And yeah, we just use it.
Okay, you used a word called infrastructure. We'll come to that. Anyway, right, let's get started. Serverless, you can either read that or you can listen to me. Right, in serverless, you do not have to grab a VM instance, right? You don't have to grab an entire server for the entire duration of running your application, right? You do not have to you do not have to worry about having reserved a spot, right? Which was the traditional way things were done. When you have a server-based deployment, you need to worry about that. Okay, this is a server which is running 24/7, so I need to pay for that, right? In serverless, that is taken away. You have not reserved any instance. Whenever your application gets called, that is only when you are charged for, right? And then, obviously, it abstracts the infrastructure management, as told. Right? You do not have to worry about upgrading the server or applying security patches or maybe maintenance. So all of these things are not your tension anymore in serverless programming. And then let's get like how did serverless programming come around? So first of all, we started off with Did we start off with infrastructure as a service? Yes. We started with infra as a service in which we had VMs available, right? Long back, everyone used to deploy virtual machines, and you used to host your you used to host your code there, and whenever you needed it to scale up, the only option was to have either multiple deployments, and they would all again be like under different host names, and then you had to find out a way to put them behind a single host name using a load balancer. Or else you had the option of increasing the size of the VM, which was the one which was preferred by smaller companies because they could not really go into multiple deployments, right? And then we had platform as a service, right? Right after infrastructure as a service was launched, people realized that there was a lot of hassle in maintaining the underlying libraries and tools which go into a VM, right? And it was really not feasible for a normal, smaller scale company to do all of that. They would need a server administrator to do that, right? To take away the server administrator out of the question, we had platform as a service in which the entire platform was managed. You got runtime, you got like X number of runtimes which were predefined, and you could choose to deploy on that, right? If you remember, some time back we had all these companies which were providing web hosting, and they were very clear about what kind of web hosting they were providing, right? They used to advertise as PHP, MySQL, Apache hosting, right? This was very popular at a time. Whenever you tried to go and find a web host, they used to tell you that, okay, this is what we offer, right? This is PHP, MySQL, Apache, and probably PHP, MyAdmin, and stuff like that. They had a set stack. And this was a platform that they created, and this was offered as a service, right? What happens after this, naturally, is that you should not be locked into the X number of runtimes, right? You should not have to worry about the management part. You should not have to worry about the platform as well, right? And that is where we came to functions as a service, right? You do not really need to care anymore about what is the underlying runtime being provided. The runtime will be taken care of. You just need to care about your code, right? Whatever Python code you have, whatever Node.js code, or whatever language that may be, whatever code you have, you should be able to push only your code, and the rest of it should be taken care of by the cloud platform, right? This is functions as a service, which is the technical name for serverless programming, right? You do not have to really worry about building an entire monolithic structure and then putting it with a server. You don't have to worry about that. You just deploy your functions, very small pieces of code. You're doing one task at a time. You deploy them, and whenever it's needed, only then they are run, and only then you are charged for it, right? So if a function in your application is being called probably once a month, you are probably going to be billed very less for it, right? And this is the benefit of why you should be using serverless. And this is especially very useful for students, right? Because there's this point written here, pay per use pricing, pay when you make money, right? And test out ideas for free. This is what students actually need, right? You do not want to be paying for just building college projects, right? Just building out, say, the X idea you had. You want to build it, you want to deploy it, you want to send it out to your friends, maybe a wider circle. So until and unless you start making money on that, obviously you don't want to be charged. No one wants to be charged for that, right? Building ideas and testing ideas should be free, and that is what serverless allows you to do. And then obviously there's automatic scaling, which means that an application which you are using with probably 50 of your friends today, if tomorrow you get 5,000 people on the same platform all of a sudden, you don't have to change any kind of settings. It will automatically scale up to cater to those 5,000 people. And when those 5,000 people have left, it will come back down to 50 or 0 or 5, whatever be the number by itself. You don't really have to worry about anything. Finally, less time to market. Since you do not really have to worry about anything, right? You do not have to worry about, what is the runtime, how to configure the runtime, how to configure the, probably the endpoints, right? So all of these is taken care of. So all you have to do is just write your code and ship the code, right? And which basically means in a hackathon or maybe in a company setting where you have been asked to rapidly build prototypes, right? Your boss calls in and says that, hey, this is the idea and I need a prototype tomorrow, right? So this is something which is possible with serverless programming. If you go into setting up a server, setting up a database, it is actually going to take away probably 30% of your development time, right? So saving on that time, and then obviously after setting up everything, you deploy the code, and after deploying the code, you will have to again configure the security rules, networking, and stuff like that. And that's going to probably take another 10-20% of your time, right? So saving a lot of time here. Finally, serverless on GCP, right? What are the tools available for serverless on GCP? Because you will be getting credits for GCP today, so you might want to look into this. But before that, let's take a look at who is actually. So there's a popular company called Rapido, right? And Rapido, they said that Rapido has moved from a longer release cycle to releasing 10-15 minor releases per day, right? 10-15 minor releases per day, which is actually a huge number, because there was a time in companies when having one minor release per day was the target for a company which was moving fast. So if you think about a company which is doing 10 to 15 releases with the size of team that they have, this is actually seriously very fast, right? And that is what serverless has allowed them to do. They do not have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. All they have to do is make the changes, push it, make the changes, push it, right? And I'll actually show you how we'll do that. We'll just change small things, push it, and we'll see it getting deployed immediately. And then there's Grofers, right? Another very popular name. And Grofers, the associate VP says that in only 2 weeks, they built, including the mobile apps, using Google App Engine, right? So Google App Engine is one such serverless product on GCP. And that is how fast you can launch a business, right? Launching a business should not take time. Probably scaling it will take a bit more time in terms of business because scaling a business is a different thing altogether. But on tech terms, it should not be taking time. So here are some items from the GCP serverless toolbox. Cloud functions, how many of you have used it? How many of you have heard about it? Yeah, so just a suggestion in this hackathon, if you're going to build probably a very small service which maybe triggers an email or maybe does one computation in the cloud, you want it to be fast and non-billed to you because GCP Cloud Functions has a very generous limit. So you might want to use Cloud Functions for that. Then there's Cloud Run. Anyone tried Cloud Run? No one? On the side. Okay, so I'll be showing you how to deploy things very quickly with Cloud Run today. I'll do a very small deployment. And then we have App Engine, which is kind of the predecessor of Cloud Run, with obviously its own differences, which makes it relevant even today. But then it's pretty much replaced by Cloud Run. And in case you wanted to, you could just keep choosing Cloud Run over App Engine until you hit a very specific use case. Then there's Cloud Endpoints. Multiple APIs, right? If you have multiple deployments with different APIs running on different host names and with different policies and stuff, you can actually bundle them all together under Cloud Endpoints and put them under a single host name and with a similar structure, right? And then there's API Gateway, which is pretty much similar to Cloud Endpoints, but then API Gateway has a different method of deployment, and you can take a look at that as well. And for people who are participating in hackathons, these are some other tools which are very useful. Firebase, how many of you have used Firebase? Yes, Firebase can pretty much do everything for you. It will give you authentication, it will give you backend in terms of cloud functions, Firebase cloud functions. And you will also have storage, which is Firestore. And you will also have real-time DB and just storage as well, which is basically storing things on a GCP bucket. So you will have all of that for free. So think about it like a trimmed down version of GCP, which is free for a very generous limit. Cloud storage, which is like the larger version of what you will get in Firebase itself. And in cloud storage, you will be able to store object blobs, and you can put your own access control over that. Along with that, there's a very interesting thing about cloud storage. If you want to host a static website, you can do it directly from cloud storage, absolutely free, forever. Because cloud storage has a free tier of 5 GB, unlimited till the end of times, right? So if you wanted a free website, and in fact, since you have 5 GB, you can think about probably 5,000 websites. You can actually have it for free on cloud storage. And then Cloud Vision API, a very popular API for anyone building applications or quick hacks which relate to seeing things or observing things or maybe recognizing objects and doing something based on that. So Cloud Vision API is actually very popular in hackathons, and you can try that as well. It's free till a limit, but then obviously it's going to cost you, so you might want to just keep it within the hackathon and not use it afterwards, unless you want to put your product out for business. And beyond GCP, right? It does not fit if I do not go to the other parts as well, because when you are building a software, there's actually multiple things which come in, right? There's the business logic, application, database, logging, operations. While GCP has a lot of these for you in terms of serverless, there are a few things which are missing. Say, for example, the databases. GCP does not offer a serverless relational database, right? While you have the database available in the form of a document database on Firebase, but then you do not have a relational database. So in case you wanted to use MySQL or Postgres, you will have to look for alternate tools, right? And in those, I'm going to talk about first Next.js. For those of you who do React or React.js or React Native, it will be very easy for you to switch to Next.js for building applications which have the API and the front end coupled together. And these APIs are actually running in very small backends. They are all serverless functions. You can deploy it on Next.js own deployment platform, which is Vercel, or else you can also deploy it on Firebase as well, which now has support for Next.js, right? So whatever Next.js functions you have, the small APIs, they will get converted to cloud functions. And then there's railway.app. So in case you want a full environment with backend and database and everything else, you can always look at railway.app. So if you want to create a relational database, which is serverless, basically means that you will not be charged for that database until and unless you hit a certain limit, right? So actually very generous limit, because I have been using Railway for a long time, and my bill has never gone above like $2 or $3 a month, right? So by the way, $2 or $3 is basically less than your Starbucks coffee. So yeah, so if you want serverless databases, so Railway is something which will provide you the option to deploy any kind of serverless database. You can always take a look at that. And here are some tips and tips for fast prototyping. So I'll actually read this out, right? Just stay in the GCP free tier, right? GCP has a very generous free tier in which they give you one VM for free, running continuously 24/7 for forever, right? So, and in fact, I think recently they even upgraded the machine that they were providing, right? I think it was 512 MB machine earlier. Now it is a 1 GB machine. And you can always use GCP's pre-built samples to quickly get started. In hackathons, you want to have a head start. So having GCP's pre-built samples, which are built by the team at Google, or else even by the community, you can always get a head start. You can pretty much find everything that you're going to create in a hackathon already built there. And then, yes, break down your project into smaller, manageable tasks. Now, why I ask you to do this is because if you break it down into smaller tasks, you are actually going to find it easier to distribute the work between the team and then deploy it separately and then finally connect it together using a mesh. And then GCP's APIs and SDK. And finally, you can always think about the security part. Although in a hackathon, I'm not sure how many of you are going to care about the security, so I'll just skip over that. And here's a list of resources. There's a lot of links in there which you can click when you have access to this deck, which is why I'll share it with you later. And that was all. Seriously? Yeah, we'll actually do a demo, right? Let me come to the demo. Hello, hello. Cool. Let's come to a demo, very short one. We'll actually be building the same thing which I showed you at the starting of this session. Right? First of all, what you want to do is you would like to go to Google Cloud. Right? These are some things which you will be able to do once you have the credits in your hands. Right? So when you attend the session at 7 p.m. in the evening by Abhirami, you will get the cloud credits and then you can do this. Right? Once you have the credits, you will be able to access this dashboard. And what I want you to do is like on the left, find Vertex AI. On Vertex AI, there's Generative AI Studio. You can go to the Generative AI Studio, click on language. And if you want to chat, you can just start chatting with it, obviously. But in a hackathon, you don't want to spend your time chatting with a model. You want to build something, right? So go into language and adjust the settings as you want. You can choose to increase the randomness in what the response comes in, or else you can make it more predictive using temperature 0. And then there are some other settings. You can always read about these settings by clicking this question button. Finally, when you're done, you can always click on the code, right? On the top right, remember this, on the top right, click on view code, and you will actually get the entire code which is needed to make predictions using this model, right? Choose to put this in a Python collab, or else you can choose to put it on a curl command. If you do, if you take this curl command out of this, actually just copy this and you can say convert to JavaScript or something like this, and then paste your uh, yeah, paste your code here, and you can submit. I'm not sure what response it will create. Yeah, but then, okay, there you go, right? It has converted the entire curl command to JavaScript. So if you're using JavaScript, it can do that for you. If you're using mobile development, you can do this as well, convert it to Dart or convert it to any other language which you want it to come out in, right? So yeah, just be limited by Python here. Just go to curl, copy this, ask it to convert it to in any language you want it to, right? So once you have the code, you can go ahead and put it in a application. What I've done here, let me show you the files one by one. So there's the main.py, and it's actually a very small file. First of all, what it does is import some libraries which are required for presentation of this application. And after that, it imports a few things which are needed, right? It imports Vertex AI, it imports Vertex AI language models, the text generation model which we saw, and then Google Cloud Service account, set up the credentials, there's a key.json here, which is a service file which I've created. And to create service files, you will actually need to go to IAM. Right, so once you go to IAM, you can set up your service accounts, and inside the service accounts, you can API keys, right? So yeah, this is not that page which I was looking for. So you go to API and services, you can go into credentials, and this is the one which I set up. You can click on the service account name, and you can go to keys, and you can just click on add key and create a new key in form of JSON. So once you have done, you will be given a JSON file, and that JSON file is the same one which I've put here as key.json, right? So you can just put it there. And then finally, after doing all the imports, we start setting up the project. We have done the initialization. If you see, temperature, max output tokens, and all those are what you saw in the UI itself. And then we are going to use the text bison model. So we are using a pre-trained model. We have saved it as model. And then what we have done is, like, whatever chat messages are coming in, we are saying, we have actually added a prompt to it, right? Whatever you were typing in the UI, I was actually adding it with a prompt. The prompt was generate a poem with the message that follows, make it sound like Shakespeare, make it funny, no longer than 12 lines. Right? So whatever prompt you guys were putting in onto the application, I was adding a layer on top of that to get the output as a poem. Right? So once you have done that, you will get the response. I've used the Marco library to render Markdown, because all the response which comes in, usually from all the text models, it comes in the form of Markdown. And once you have done that, you can choose to display it, right? There's a couple of template files here. I will not try to explain them. They are all just plain HTML and JavaScript, everything vanilla, right? Because it's easier to follow. And once you have done, you can just come to your terminal, and there's a very simple command which you need to run here. Let me zoom this. Yep. So the command is very simple. Google Cloud CLI is available as gcloud. So gcloud run is the cloud run, and then deploy. And this is actually enough to work, but then I'm just going to give a direction of where the files are which have to be deployed. If you have a build process involved, right? If you have, say, React application, or maybe even a Next.js application, you can always do a build command on it, which will generate the static HTML files. And if you want to deploy that, you will have to put the path of the directory here, right? But since all my files are already in vanilla HTML and JavaScript, I can just do a source dot, right? So once I do that, it will ask me for the service name, and it will ask me for which region to deploy it to. And I just gave a central one, US central one. And this is as simple as it is, right? It just asks me the name of the project. It asks me which region I want to deploy it to. And once I did that, the deployment has already started. And it will do its process, and it will give you out a URL, which you can just start using immediately. And obviously that URL, since it's on Cloud Run, It will have infinite scalability, and at the same time, the right security practices enabled, which I actually did while I was setting up this project, right? So that is how simple it is. I'll get this part complete while I go back to the presentation, which I don't know where it is. Okay, here we are. Right, so I'll let the deployment complete. Once the deployment is complete, I'll show you what the URL came out, right? And right now, let's questions. If any of you have any questions right now regarding serverless, regarding Cloud Run, and yeah, in general, regarding anything to do with this hackathon. Interesting. So either everyone understood everything or nothing. Okay, yes?
If we are using Firebase or Firestore inside our project, does that include us inside the GCP track?
Sorry, can you please repeat this?
If we are using Firebase or Firestore inside our project, does that include us inside the GCP track? Or would that we'll have to use something like storage bucket or something like that?
I'm not sure I'm not able to understand. Does that include you in what?
Does that include me in the GCP track for this hackathon? Like if I am using Firebase?
Yes. Yeah, it does. If you're
right?
using Firebase and things like that, you will be included in the GCP track for this hackathon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we are building a Django app, and we were thinking of to deploy it in in a VM instance. So will it be a paid service?
Sorry, come again and bit louder. Actually, the
Hello?
speakers are facing your side.
Okay. So basically, we are building a Django app, and we will deploy it in in a VM instance.
Okay.
So will it be a paid service, or we can do it with the free credits?
So you're going to deploy it on a VM.
Yes.
Yeah. So GCP free tier actually has one free VM for everyone.
Okay.
So once you get the credits, I totally suggest that you go ahead and deploy a VM and deploy it to that. It will be free. You just need to check for which is the free tier current offering. You can just search for GCP free tier, right? Okay. And there you will get the entire list. And from there you pick out that, okay, this is the free tier version and I'm going to deploy on this. It will stay free forever.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
भैया CI/CD के लिए भी है क्या इसमें कुछ?
Sorry?
CI/CD के लिए भी है क्या?
CD. Yes, I did not show you that in detail, but I did mention it in my slides. If you see under the hood, it imitates Cloud Run, Cloud Build, and Cloud Deploy. Right? There's three things I've written here. So Cloud Run, I actually showed you. That is the deployment platform. Cloud Build is a tool which allows you to build applications from whatever source you are giving it. Right? It could be a storage bucket. It could be a GitHub repo. Right? And Cloud Deploy is the tool which you can use to copy things from a GitHub repo directly to your Google Cloud and then deploy over, right? So, although I did not put it in this application, I have demos of that in which once you push to a GitHub repo, it will automatically deploy to Cloud Run, like within 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. So, you might want to look into Cloud Build and Cloud Deploy.
ये भी free है भैया?
There's a free tier for both of these.
Okay.
Right? You will probably not exceed this free tier while you are using it probably with a team of 2 or 3.
Thank you.
So yeah, I have one question. So we are creating a backend, and it has many API paths. So what would you suggest? Like we should have a single application, and inside that we have different paths, or we should have different function for each API path?
It actually depends on how you are separating these paths. Say for example, you have a backend which is handling APIs for a chatbot and APIs for a social network at the same time, right? This is a bad idea. You might want to put them on different deployments, right? Separate them out, make it thinner, and deploy them separately. But if you have, say, within the chatbot, you have okay, this is a chatbot for text, this is a chatbot for code, you can put them together. You can put them on different routes and be done with it, right? You don't have to deploy it separately. So it just depends on how close together your APIs are, and from that you can decide.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay. Do we have more questions? No? So I think yes, thank you for being an amazing audience. And if you want to get connected with me, these are my credentials. I will not be staying for the entire duration of the hackathon, although if you want, I'm also available on Discord. So you can ask me questions there and I'll try to keep answering while I'm traveling. So yeah, anyway, you can just find me, the same username on Discord as well, right? Don't send me DMs, ask me in the groups because a lot of people have the same queries. And if you want the source code to the application that we created, by the way, which should have got deployed by now. And okay, so here's the URL which we got. Once we got the URL, this is the kind of UI which comes, and you can always write things here like Hack4Bengal, Hackathon, Bengal. What else? Words, Kolkata. Right, so just send and very quickly you will get a response. There was once a hackathon in Bengal. Okay, anyway, nice point. Yeah, so if you want the code for this particular repo, this is a very bare bones, very minimal repository. So if you want the code for this, you can just scan this QR code and you will get the GitHub repo. In case anyone wants to do that, you can also take a picture of it if you want to scan it later. And finally, if you want to get this deck, then you can scan this QR code, right? If you want to click around on all the links which I included in my presentation. So that was all. Thank you.
I would request Anup Bhaiya to stay kindly on the stage for a few minutes. I would request our lead organizer, Shagnikta, to come up on the stage and felicitate Anup Bhaiya. A big round of applause for such a wonderful session. Thank you, Shagnikta. Thank you, Anup Bhaiya. So folks, now is the time for the lunch. All the hackers present here are requested to get back to their respective allotted labs. From there, our volunteers will direct you to the lunch area. If any issues, you can contact any of the volunteers and they will guide you. Kindly move back to your respective allotted labs. Our workshop sessions will resume just after